What we're talking about last week, I'm going to show you something here. Last week. The reason why we really need these things. Last week, remember, we were talking about Esau.
Yes.
And Jacob. Jacob being the one who put the yoke on Esau. Esau being the man of color. Now, I want to show you something. There is something that is done by Jacob to Esau. Esau brings in the meat.
He's the hunter.
Today we need to talk about the pot of stew, that bow of stew. That bow, I'm telling you, that bow, if I could see it, I'm going to kick it.
Yeah, true.
So the bow of stew is put on the side, knowing one day this boy will come in. And I will trade the bow of stew for his birthright. Right? I hope you're hearing what I'm saying. Now, I want you to see something. Esau comes in from the field, is very hungry. There's a deficit in his stomach.
Yes, true.
So the deficit or the hunger causes him to be desperate.
Yes.
So he has no choice but to borrow from Jacob. But the meat that is borrowing from Jacob,
he's the one who brought it in the first place.
the one who hunted it. Do you know there are what I call Jacob nations in this world?
Okay. Yes.
Powerful nations.
Yes, true.
They came together, put money together. They created a bowl of stew,
Yes.
which you now call IMF, which you call World Bank.
That's where the Africans run to.
So when we are in a deficit like
yes.
Esau,
Yes. Yeah.
we run
to the
borrow.
IMF.
I don't know if you're hearing what I'm saying. Should I go on? Should I go deep on this one?
Go deeper.
So how is the deficit or the hunger created? This is what happens. There is what they call the balance of payment in economics.
Yeah.
The balance of payment, this is the difference in money that is flowing into a country and money that is going out of a country.
That's true.
So it is determined by export and import.
Yeah.
But now a deficit is created when there is more import than export. The more you import instead of exporting, you
Yes.
create a deficit, you create a hunger like
Yeah.
Esau.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is where the challenge comes in. You are now desperate because of the deficit you've created. What do? You go to the pot of stew.
You go to borrow.
But what is in the pot of stew? It came from you.
Yes.
Because you are the ones who are buying Mercedes-Benz from Germany. You are the ones who are buying clothes from America.
Yeah.
So the money that you are taking to their countries, they put that money in a pot of stew. You come and borrow. But you don't borrow from IMF or World Bank for nothing. In fact, I was seeing this interview, this guy from IMF. He said, IMF is not a donor. What do you call it?
Yeah, it's not a donor company.
It's not. It's a business.
It's a business.
Because someone was asking them, why are you giving Africa all these?
They're not being charitable.
Why don't you just give them for free? They
Yeah.
said, no, we are a business. But my question is, how come, for an example, a country goes to borrow money from IMF, right? They borrow the money. How come I've borrowed and I've not yet finished paying? If I go back, they give me again. What kind of a credit is that?
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know if you're hearing what I'm saying.
Sense, yeah.
Do you know why they do that? They understand the Proverbs 22 verse 7, which says, the borrower
Yes.
is servant to the lender.
To
So
the
to them, the thing which is important is not you borrowing. It is you becoming a servant as you are borrowing.
They will enslave you because of that money.
So because you are now a slave, you have no choice but to give them your birthright. What is your birthright? Your birthright, that is what God gave you.
Yes.
It's your right. It belongs to you. For an example, your land,
Yes.
your minerals,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
your people, your culture.
Yes. Yes. True.
So what they do is when they give you that money, they are now after your birthright. That's why they are now able to come and buy things for cheap here. They take our raw materials to their countries. They make cheap things, then they come and sell them to us.
To continue to impoverish Africa.
Because they are now taking our birthright. You will find in Africa, you can have someone from China, India, America owning buildings, a chain of buildings.
This is it. How come?
They are now taking your birthright.
Eish.
They can also take your culture. Because it's your birthright.
Yes.
Why? You have no choice but to give them. Because you owe them. You are a servant. That's why now they can tell you, in your countries, make sure men are allowed to marry men. Make sure women are allowed to win. Now they're taking your birthright.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So our desperation as African people, our desperation, and there's no need for us to be desperate. Esau, there's no need for you to be desperate, because this shoe, you are the one who brought
This
it.
is it.
And I want to ask you a question.
Each and every piece of meat, you're the one who brought it.
Tish, if we are borrowing from this pot of shoe, which came from a deer that Esau caught in the field, this is just a pot. How much is left this side? How much was eaten by Esau? You didn't hear that. How much was eaten by Esau to a level where he had nothing?
I want to say this, and this is really important. One of the worst cultures that Africa has is the consumption culture.
That's our problem. You see,
Everything that you get, you want to eat it.
that's the greatest challenge that which means
You want to finish it.
Which means the meat which was eaten by Esau is bigger
It's plenty
than the one that is borrowing.
that is borrowing from.
Those billions we are borrowing from IMF, they can never be
Far too
compared
little compared to what
to
we
the money that
exported.
we have spent
Eish.
on useless things.
Yeah, true.
You hear what I'm saying? Are you?
On fleshy lives, on things that will not give us or any of our future generations
Yes.
impetus, power, energy, vibration.
You can no longer
things that
invest
are
in
positive.
education,
This is-
health system. You can't. For an example,
The health
you see,
system does not work.
You see-
The education system
see-
does not work. The banking system does not work, because all of it has been consumed.
you see,
It's been eaten
the
up.
challenge that Esau has when he gets a meat from the forest, or when he gets something from the forest, he does not save. Because if he was saving, he was going to create his own IMF.
And he would have made business
You see-
from Jacob.
Do you know by
Because
now-
Jacob had nothing in the beginning.
By now, Southern Africa should be having their own IMF.
Yes. And we should be lending to the
them.
other.
You hear what I'm saying? But we can't do that because we don't save. If I tell you right now we are in a crisis, coronavirus, Esau is coming from the field. He's in a crisis.
Yeah.
He's hungry. That's a crisis. But because you didn't save, you have to borrow.
You have to borrow.
We are in a crisis. Do you know that right now there are about 20 sub-Saharan countries that have applied to borrow 16 billion US dollars from IMF, and it has been approved. But I want you to know something. That money is not coming for nothing. They want the birthright.
And that money is going to be very expensive, not just for us, but for our future generations.
Mr. Mataz, if I tell you 10 power countries in Africa, South Africa included, Nigeria, Morocco,
Yeah.
do you know how much they owe in debt? Just 10. And these are power countries that we admire.
We think that they're the ones that are doing it.
Do you know how much they owe in debt to IMF, World Bank, or China?
How much?
569 billion.
Eish.
These are the power countries. What about the small ones? Why am I saying this? Someone will ask, why are you saying this, man of God? Why are you saying this? To show you how much the world, to show you how much Africa needs Christ.
Yeah.
When I say Christ, I'm not talking about religious Christ,
Yeah.
where people stand on pulpit and they're jumping around and making noise. I'm talking about a mindset, the mindset of Christ, which lifts our thinking from lower thought. All these things, they are caused by lower thought.
True.
Because someone will say you are not preaching Christ. I know how people will react. You should stick to preaching Christ. Preaching Christ.
Man of God, why are you talking about these
No.
things? Why are you talking about money?
Christ
Why
has
are you
to be
talking about
relevant to
wealth?
what is happening in the
Yes,
world.
why are you talking about the things that happened in the past?
No, we should preach Christ in relevance to what is happening to our world. Christ should be the answer to our governments. He should be an answer to our universities, to our health system, because Christ is not a spirit. Christ is not some smoke like what we think. Christ is a way of thinking. So I'm saying we should introduce this way of thinking into Africans.
Christ is knowledge.
Remember, Christ is the word. What is word?
Yeah.
Information. So Christ is information.
And this is the information that Africa
Yes,
needs
that's
in
what I'm
order
talking about.
For Africa to be free.
This is what is called preaching Christ.
Yes.
Preaching Christ is not mentioning his name in a sermon. You can mention the name of Christ 10 times in a sermon, but you have not preached about Christ.
No, you haven't.
Preaching Christ is giving us information which creates the Christ mindset in us. So I'm saying Africa needs the Christ mindset. When we have the Christ mindset, we don't borrow from them.
Africa will be free.
We'll do our own thing.
Africa
It's a
will be
mindset
free.
that we need to carry. That's why Christ came with the good news to give it to Africans.
Yes.
I've been sent. Remember, the person who told us what Joseph did in Egypt is not an Egyptian. It's a fellow Israelite.
Yes.
Which means if Moses did not write down, we're never going to hear about Joseph.
that's
Which means there's need for an African to stand up and tell us
Yes.
what the black man can do. I'm telling you right now, a black man can change this world.
You know,